Hello, everyone, and welcome to another horrific review. Right, we are carrying on with The Crow. So, The Crow Salvation. Alex Corvis returns to the world of the living to solve the murder of a young woman that he was wrongly accused of. Blah, just stops. That he was wrongly accused of. That's the weirdest. IMDb needs to sort their life out, their descriptions. But yeah, this is the third Crow movie. And I have to say, my expectations were well and truly subverted. I was expecting to go in this and just be like, oh god, here we go again. This is actually a good movie. I was actually surprised. It was a nice surprise too. It's nice to like go in dreading something. And what the hell? Get on my t-shirt. Flip's sake. I don't know what it is. I've changed these obviously in the merch store, so I've got the heavier ones because I've noticed that they tend to bunch up on one side. It's very very strange with the old pattern, but that's not a thing anymore. I don't know why it's the way I hang them or what as well, because obviously I don't tumble dry shirts. I hang them up. But sorry, bit of a tangent. Just it's bugging me. I see it right there in the camera, and I'm like, ugh. Yeah. Anyway, the joys of going live and getting distracted by random things. But yeah, this was a good movie. For all intents and purposes, it should have been just as bad as the last one. But no, we've actually got a decent story here. So, like I said, we've got Alex Corvis, and we'll start off, and he's in death row, and he's getting ready to go to the chair. This had the opportunity. Let's put it like this: there's a bit of hamminess in it, right? This is a 2000s movie. It's kind of a product of his era, and it has aged. However, for some reason, they've managed to rein in the worst elements of this because this could have really went off the rails. But all the way through this, even with some of the like slightly more wooden acting, they've done a good job of it. Like I said, I was genuinely surprised how much I found myself enjoying this movie as I went through it. Especially when I come in just waiting, just ready to hate on it, if that makes sense, and ready to be on here doing another rant. But that's what we've got Alex, right? This is not related in whatsoever. There's no tenuous links. There's nothing to do with Eric Draven or anything or any of those casts. This is a completely different story. Set somewhere else, and things are playing out. So Eric's going to the chair. He was wrongly accused of killing his girlfriend. Turns out she was stabbed 53 times. Knife was found in the scene, or found in his truck or something. And all that kind of stuff. So basically, it's a done deal. Now, he's sitting with his lawyer in the cell. They're playing chess, basically waiting to go. This is where they kind of messed up a bit because the guard comes in with a birthday cake that they went and baked, saying happy birthday and the thing. It was really over the top. Because it's a bit like, if you remember The Fugitive, the one armed man, or the one, was it the one armed man? But this is a man with scars in his arm. So that was his defense. It was somebody like, I'm going to see the flashback. He saw somebody with a particular scar on their arm. Now, guards going to make that cake and, taking the piss out of him is a bit much because it's just completely unrealistic. For a start, why would they bother? B, we've all seen the Green Mile and other things. The guards, the last thing they want to do on death row is to have prisoners freaking out. They want the process to go as smoothly as possible. So the guard acting the way is, and that is just a wee bit over the top. But it's not that long in the movie. So, you get little bits like that. All right, Chris. Yeah, but the mention it the whole way through. It's a thing because it was on the trial. There's a news media. It's a bit of a circus. Yeah, there's 4 Crow movies, so there's one more after this. The Crow Wicked Prayer, which I'm going to be doing on Sunday, just to finish it off. So that's about much. The media's outside. We see the Randalls, Nathan and Aaron Randall. So it was Nathan's daughter, Aaron's sister, that was killed. So they're arriving in, and the press are just being absolute dicks, right in their face and stuff. think there's a wee bit of thing, the media is like that. I think the media have tried to wash their hands, and what they've done, instead of owning up to their behaviour, they've tried to replace it with virtue signaling. Like, the media are absolutely trash. They will, if they think they've got a story, they will happily invade somebody's privacy, get in their face. They've no reverence, especially when they're looking for a scoop. It's just interesting that everyone's forgotten what the media was like, and they haven't really changed. The only difference is now is because they use other people's footage. So because everyone's got a camera phone of some description, or everyone's going around with GoPros and what do you call them, other things, drones, and everyone's recording something. So the media doesn't have to be there with the camera to get the first person reaction. So you don't see that side of them with the reporter, charging. And that's not really a big thing anymore, because the reporter just has to sort of be on the scene. They can step back. But it doesn't mean they've changed. I mean, the nature of the beast hasn't changed. In fact, it's worse because they're hiding it. And this, we're just seeing the media again, just on a feeding frenzy. No respect whatsoever. And then they're interviewing the people outside. So you've got the people that, obviously, it's an American thing, would gather outside the jails when somebody's going to get executed, and they're partying, and they're half the times they pretend that it's justice for the person, but when they're jostling the actual family, going in to get closure, and they're interviewing one, and someone's like, "Oh, I always go to these things, blah blah blah." It's just no different from medieval times when they brought people out to the gallows. It's funny how we haven't progressed as a people at all in some respects. Public beheadings, hangings, and that were entertainment. People went to see it. People did allow themselves to just go absolutely, just go crazy with bloodlust, and that's what it is. And it's just funny today because there's a relevant thing come up earlier on. As you know, Dell, she's a great friend and one of my co-hosts, a regular on the podcast. Some arsehole tried to, kicked her out of a group because of an interview she did, because she's doing a biography on a movie director. And they're like, "Oh no, you're talking about, oh, that's horror stuff." Oh, and what you get is when you don't, and this is the whole point of horror and the genre, is it's a cathartic release. It allows you to explore those dark places. It allows those dark things to be depicted. Now, depicting something doesn't mean celebrating. This whole chain of events and watching the movie, I'm thinking another topical conversation is coming up pretty soon, because I'm starting to get thoughts about what's going on here. When you try to virtue signal or polish your good guy badge, and you're in constant denial of the fact that you have a dark element to you, and let's flip it on the other side. That grumpy old person, I hate the world, blah blah blah, and they don't acknowledge, they're always trying to be gruff, and they don't acknowledge that they have a caring side. These are two sides of the same coin. They're both extremes in behavior. When you do that, and you don't, it's basically you not accepting yourself as a full person, you're in the shit. You are only going down the path of destruction, right? Because that's all going to come out. The more it's like a pressure cooker. The more you let one side, and you don't even acknowledge it exists, and you try behavior, to deny your personality and who you are as a human, that's going to manifest. And we see it with, all these ghouls hanging outside because they want to get close to death. Basically, same as the media and everything else. And we'll see something later on with one of the same reporters. It acts out in this sort of behavior. So you see them all clamoring outside the prison where the execution's about to be carried out. They can't get in because only so many people can go in and actually witness it. But they're champing at the bit, and they're hiding it with virtue. Oh, Tarleton, they've got their placards and blah blah blah. But they're celebrating they're celebrating death, and they're doing it in a destructive way. Because if they had any sort of respect And if they were fully fledged human beings, they'd be part of the millions of people that don't turn up to these things because they're like, oh, that'll be a bit distasteful. That's not really respectful for the family. Let them have their moment, let them have their closure, and don't harass them. Instead, you get this like feeding frenzy at the start. So you'd almost think there's a bit of a message there, wouldn't you? You know, do you remember when filmmakers used to poke at the media? Now they're lockstep. They're so in each other's pockets that, and that's why the quality of filmmaking has died. It's fell off a cliff. It hasn't even reduced. It is proper tanked in terms of quality we see today because it's just an orthodoxy. It's a religion. It's all them sort of words, cult, whatever you want to call it, and it's all about pushing the same message and not challenging each other. And we don't get stuff like this anymore because dare the media be shown in the negative light, dare blah blah blah. It's all that kind of stuff, and we're seeing this playing out. So even like I said, I didn't agree with the guard because that didn't make any sense. But they're trying to set a scene of this excitement of someone getting killed and he's still protesting his innocence. And I think because he's not playing the game, that might invoke something as well. I think there's a bit of a thing here. He's not playing the game. He hasn't confessed. He's still protesting innocence. So it's almost like the human brain has to react in this way because he's 18 years of age. That was his girlfriend. People need to make sense of something, and we'll see this acting out all the way. So that's fine. We'll see. Obviously, Alex, he's waiting and he's getting strapped in and all that kind of stuff. The minister's reading out their stuff, and then in the viewing gallery, just as he's about to get put to the torch, we'll see somebody lift up their sleeve and show him the scars that he was looking for. And there's a bit of a there's a bit of a prelude. See, somebody's doing taxidermy, and one of the taxidermy crows comes to life and flies out the window, and the person who's doing the taxidermy has the scars, so we know who the villain is, if that makes sense. I'd rather not. That is the lowest form of whatever. It's like wrestling matches and all. Yeah. People come out. I was interested in mixed martial arts when it came out because I like the idea of different styles pitting against each other, and then it fell off a cliff. But yeah, look at the sort of people that follow that stuff. You're generally not dealing with the most rounded or brightest of individuals. They're exactly the same sort of people who would be at the gallows or at the stocks, throwing the tomatoes and stuff. We've always been like this. That's what I mean. I'm back to Dale getting bloody cancelled. Well, not cancelled, kicked out of a group. But the fact that people would turn on her like that for nothing, and the fact that these people are coming into the horror genre and they're trying to impose their will, so they don't actually like the genre. They want to change it, but they're not changing it to anything better because horror has been around as long as there's been storytelling. It's one of the fundamental needs of the human psyche to feel. It's a survival mechanism to feel fear. It's part of why we're alive. The animal kingdom knows this. Fear is useful as long as it doesn't own you because deer, alligators, there's animals can die from stress because they can't, they feel fear and they can't get out of it. That's why you don't like try and trap deers and stuff because they'll actually kill themselves. Just their hearts will burst from the stress because it's part of their fight or flight system. That's why they pump so much adrenaline in their body. Alligators are the same, believe it or not. You can kill an alligator with stress just by constantly messing with it and holding it and stuff. So we have this bit in the back of our brains that lets us dial it back. But dialing something back doesn't mean you switch it off. For example, the fire brigade going into a burning building is terrifying. We're hardwired not to do it. It's the stupidest thing ever to go into it. But you think of a firefighter. Yes, they've had training. They've got their equipment. But the biggest thing is to get over that fear and be able to do it. And we can dial that thing back, and then that's why, as a species, we're able to build stuff and not be overtaken by disaster. So if a forest fire happens, we put it out. We don't let it burn and run away and stampede. Soldiers, your thing running towards the machine gun as it's blatting at you is the, in your brain. You don't do that. So you need to activate that bit of your brain that we have as humans that can dial that back and overcome with something else. It's the same with, other fears. We could do it, but it doesn't mean denial. That's the point I'm trying to make here. There's a difference between dialing it back. So we know these are stories, and this whole, violence in video games, violence in this, blah, 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 blah. No, there's deeper things why people do what they do. We know fantasy from reality, but it doesn't mean in complete denial of something that it exists, or the dark part of your brain exists, or that you have certain thoughts, and you react in certain ways, and that you have anger as much as love, and all the human emotions are part of you. That leads to bad places, because when you do that, you end up acting out, and you might not even realize you're doing it, but you act out worse than somebody who can watch a horror movie and laugh at it and go about their life. The person is preaching and cancelling and saying it can't be like this and it shouldn't exist. They're the ones that are the nastiest people, because they're actually prepared to destroy someone's life. Where your general horror fan just, meh, oh, that was funny. What's for dinner? Crack on. If that makes sense. Oh, that was a fun movie. Better get ready for work tomorrow. Crack on. Oh, got a lie-in, but we're going out to do the family thing. That's your average horror fan. But we're seeing this getting played out here. This massive virtue signaling, and but people doing nasty shit, hiding behind virtue. That's very actually relevant today. And this is only the beginning of the movie too. I haven't really dived into the whole plot. I'm not going to spoil it either, because I know it's been around for a while. But I think a lot of us were put off by these sequels because of Crow City of Angels. I think that movie. I think we maybe didn't get a chance to watch this one. Or I remember a couple of scenes. I may have watched this back in the day. I honestly don't remember. But I think we were less charitable towards it because of that movie that came before, because that was just shit. So if this had been the second movie, put it like this, if this had been the second movie, I think the Crow franchise would have still been putting out movies. Just from what I've seen so far. That second movie really did a lot of damage. But yeah, we've got Alex. He gets electrocuted, and then the Crow comes, brings him back to life, and he carries on. And the thing is, when he went through the chair, he actually got fried, so his face is all like completely disfigured. And part of his regenerating, he pulls it, and this time, instead of the paint, he's got scars. So we're seeing the markings of the Crow, and this is where they've been clever with this. He's got his scars a different way. It's not makeup, it's from the burn when he pulls it off, the leftover, it's the Crow's left its mark, the same as the Crow symbol. This is the sign that someone's become a Crow. But in the first movie, Eric's character, because he was an artist, he did it himself, because he did the music and stuff, and his his girlfriend did makeup and stuff. He used that, and that was just part of what he had. We got it. The second one, the way Sarah did the makeup was just absolutely shit. It was so contrived. This was See It. It's done a different way. We get a different looking Crow. We're getting a different character. So once again, it's carrying on with the legend of, if a spirit is so at unease due to an injustice, it'll come back to rectify that. And the story's carrying on, completely different setting. And you can, you can forgive it. You're not thinking, oh, this is a shameless cash grab. This is just a lore. There's been a property created here. How do you carry on the story? and they've done it quite well. Just such a shame that I think this movie should have done better than. I think, like I said, if this had been the second movie, it would have done better. And I think there wouldn't have been as much animosity towards the franchise as a whole. And if it had made the TV series, of course, that was it. Making The Crow, City of Angels, making a TV show just absolutely tanked this franchise. Which, you make those decisions if you don't have good data, or if you don't have a good bait in the audience, knowing when something's a good idea or not, then that's what's going to happen. And that's all creativity. There's an element of taking a chance with it, but there's also making informed decisions. There you go. That's that. Yep. So we'll have Eric comes back, and we'll see a bit more between him and the Crow. The Crow's squawking. There's a bit of communication between them because we've still got Alex. I keep saying Eric has got Eric in my head now. Alex come back. He's confused. He doesn't really know. I must see him going through that process of understanding then that he's back from the dead. And then he finds out he's invulnerable. And he's led to the evidence locker in the police station. And that's where he finds his case. The Crow sort of leads him, and he finds his case. He gets the list of people, of witnesses at the trial, and he then formulates the plan. He finds the knife that was found in evidence, and by touching it, he has a psychic link. He gets an idea of what's going on. He knows somebody actually lied on the stand, which put him away, put him at the scene, which wasn't true. So that's where he starts. So he's not just going out for revenge, because, like in the first movie, we'll ignore the second movie. We'll actually pretend that movie never happened, I think, for the purpose of continuity. We saw in the first movie, Eric knew who the killers were, and he had an idea of where they hung out and all that kind of stuff. So his was easier. Alex was a product of the system. He was locked up while all this happened, and then when he went to trial, there was people came up he had never even seen before, and that, so he was confused. And the thing about this movie is it actually portrays that really well. There's good storytelling here, and like I said, I was not expecting in a million years to be impressed by this movie, but I was, and I found myself following the storyline because we didn't know either. That's the thing. We as the audience don't know how the story's going to pan out, so we're solving the mystery along with them. So it's a bit more than a supernatural drama, and it's a bit more than an action flick. There's a bit of a murder mystery here too, and there's a bit of an uncovering of what the hell went on. And then we start to see he gets the witness, he interrogates him, he finds out what's happened. He starts piecing things together, and then we see the flip side of it. We see the antagonists start to discover what's happening, and as each one gets taken out. Now, like I said, I'm not going to bring too many names and stuff into this review, because I would like you, if you haven't seen this movie, I would like you to give it a go. I would like you to come out with a fresh mind and give it a chance, because I had a perception before I started watching it. And if I can change my, you know how stubborn I am, if I can change my perception from what I was expecting to what I got, I would invite you to do the same. Of course, if you do watch it and you still think the same, fair enough. You know what I mean? Let's have a chat about it. If you watch this afterwards. God, I'm forgetting my words here for a second. No, if you watch this afterwards and you've seen the movie and you have different views on it, let's have a chat. But I understand the feelings of the time. I understand the budgetary concerns, why it was turned out the way it did, especially with some of the special effects. But at the same time, because there's a good story being told, I can forgive a lot of that stuff. A lot of people think in horror particularly, I think it's the same with action. Well, maybe action's about a lower bar, but with horror, all I want to do is see the kills and the splatter and the gore, and that's fun and all, but it's nothing without an engaging story. So the special effects are actually way down the list. For me, anyway. Might be different for other people, but for me, I can forgive a lot of hokey, bad special effects if there's a good story there. And I can forgive special effects if they didn't have the budget or the technology to pull something off, as long as I have characters I can identify with and relate to and understand, and if the antagonist makes sense and there's a story there that I can follow. So for all intents and purposes, we've got this. We've got a story we can follow. It's unfolding as we go along. The pacing in this is actually pretty decent as well. Now I'm thinking about it. The pacing list. Do you know why some movies can just drag along and all that kind of thing? This is pretty well paced. You don't feel like there's filler, and that's new as not new, but that's becoming rare today as well. That they aren't just filling on scenes for the sake of making the runtime. They're everything makes sense, as in terms of plot happens, an action sequence happens, a discovery's made, and the plot is moving forward. And there's no wasted time on exposition or just, oh, let's stop everything to explain to the audience so they can catch up, right? Restart the movie again and carry on. There's none of that. Where the movie fails, and it didn't do it immediately, it was sort of towards the end, is the main antagonist, the person behind all this. As I find out, there's a bit more to it. So basically, think of the top dollar type character. They actually started off that they were grounded in the universe, and you could sort of believe them. And then they went a bit OTT, and towards the end, especially with the secret lair, let's say at the end, which we saw at the start of the movie, it's a bit daft. And this is where the movie, I think, could have had a word with itself and maybe went, let's not do that. But on the other hand, because I've enjoyed it up to this point, I can forgive the faux pas. I can forgive the little, where it went a bit silly. I can actually forgive that because there's enough good stuff in this movie that you can sort of go, oh God, what did you do that for? Right. At least it's not the entire movie. Where if you think Crow City of Angels, the whole Judah character and everything, that was just a joke. Like all those characters were comical and it was unintentional comedy. So you couldn't take him seriously. At least up until this went a wee bit silly. And if you watch a movie, you'll know what I mean. I was on board. They were a legitimate threat. I felt like there was purpose behind them, why they were doing what they were doing. But the movie kind of got ahead of itself. It's not goth music. It's more sort of harder industrial metal throughout this. Now, I like industrial metal, so it's more down my. If you think of like some Marilyn Manson, that kind of stuff, it's Fear Factory. Wasn't in bands, but I mean, there's different, but it was more sort of that thing. But because of the settings, it fitted in. So if they had to play The Cure and a lot of golf type music during this, it would have been silly because this is more industrial, and the set pieces are more industrial, and it's more hard, like a hardened city. They're saying it was set in Salt Lake City, but I don't believe that because it doesn't look anything like Salt Lake City. It looks like your generic American city. You're not really meant to be able to tell where it is. So they've just picked a name out of the hat. And also, I don't think Utah has a death penalty. So that's a bit silly as well. But they've set it as a sort of generic, but it's more, you see it more industrial. And it's less gothic and it's less daft like the second one. So the music fits in with that. And it's not overpowering. So like City of Angels, the music took over a bit and was overpowering and actually took you away from the plot, just the way they edited it. Or at least this just keeps the sort of beats and it goes in and you're fine with it. It's cool. Alex as well, the guy that plays Alex, he did a good job because at the end of the day, he's still a kid, in terms of the character. And he's playing that sort of kid that's still getting over what happened to him. and he's still got the anger to him. But you also see the crow come through. So they've done this quite well, that the crow almost being an entity and part of. So when somebody's resurrected, they're not wholly themselves. They're almost partially animated by the spirit of the crow. So when you see him starting to revel, bits of that breaking through, it's him, but it's also the other entity, and it's cool. This was better done, and I don't know whether it was intentional in the first movie or it was just Brandon Lee's acting, but this is that like I said, we'll forget the second one. That was fucking awful. But this strikes the balance of Alex being, working through his issues, but also the crow taking over, which allows him to do what he does. And that sort of reveling in the punishment, if that makes sense, because we'll see that, but it's toned down enough and it's subtle enough that it's not just he becomes a completely different character and that's it. They also did well, people not recognizing him at first, and they think he's wearing makeup, which obviously he is, but they're sort of going, "Who are you?" Especially when he goes back to Peter, his friend, who we find out is his friend, which is also interesting because Lauren's father called him a deadbeat, yet he's friends with professionals. You don't be friends with professional people if you're a deadbeat. Now, you'd be friends with people at different economic levels, that's not what I'm saying at all. But if you're a deadbeat, you're just going nowhere. Professional people don't tend to hang about with people who don't at least try to achieve something in their life. It's just your level of success is relative to circumstances, etc., etc., that kind of thing. So that was an interesting turn. It's almost the movie itself was flipping the narrative that was put against them, because that's what they use in the court, that he was basically a bum going nowhere. We didn't actually know what he did for a living, and that her father, had a problem because he knew it was always going to come a cropper because he's rich, and the daughter was basically slumming it, and him, all that kind of stuff was brought in. But at the same time, we see enough going on that maybe that's not the case. There's something a bit more to the story. So I like that too. That wasn't beating you over the head with it. It was just subtly woven in there. And I like that. I like it when you're not told, you're shown things. You're not just told of, oh, well, blah 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 blah. You're not following the story then. And that's where a lot of filmmakers today and just general storytellers forget. They forget the show, not tell. And it's so much potential lost. And there's so much, if you want to touch on a social issue or if you want to talk about things, you're not using storytelling to convince people, you're just preaching at them. And then people always react. There's the zealot that just wants to be preached to, and it doesn't matter what the message is, they want to absolve all responsibility for their own life, for somebody on a pulpit, whatever that pulpit looks like, to tell them how they're a good person and how anyone not them is a bad person and how all the woes of their life are on point to whatever group they want to point to. But storytelling makes you think, it makes you question, it makes you evaluate, and also makes you reevaluate. I'll give an example. I reevaluated this movie from what I'd seen before and distant memories. I was coming into this not expecting to have a good time. I was expecting this to be like just another rant of me going, "Oh, what a big pile of shit!" Blah 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 blah. And I was pleasantly surprised. And I was pleasantly surprised that, despite some of the hokiness, which is there, but dialed back enough that the story took over, I was going along with the plot. And yeah, it did become obvious as things unfolded. It was becoming obvious who was who and what was what, and that's cool. I didn't mind because I still wanted to see how it played out. And yeah, even at the end, and they replicate one of the things of the idea of killing the crow would take away their powers and that, but it shown not to be the case. So it might be like a temporary blip, but it doesn't, you're not dealing with earthly forces. And it's almost like that, what goes around comes around. By carrying out your actions, you've put enough bad will into the universe that the boomerang effect that is coming right back at you, nothing you can do. It's going to happen. And once again, this is a warning. This is a horror story that's a warning of watch what shit you put out in the world, or watch what actions you take, because some actions in life will even reach into the afterworld, and it's such an offense that it will come back to you. And it's one of them. We know there's shitty people in the world, but this is a moment for you to just sort of get a bit of catharsis and see that maybe there is justice, if not from this world, but the next. And some things are so bad that they come back into this world to knock you in the head. And if it does nothing, it makes you evaluate, your behavior. Like, oh God, I wouldn't want that to happen. I don't want some spectral from the afterlife come back and doing gnarly things to me. You know what I mean? That sort of thing. And that's what I mean. It's the fact that 2 lives were destroyed unnecessarily. Over what? Once again, I'm not going to spoil because that's the plot. There's stuff going on. And all the other stuff that happened, you're like, yeah, need to put a stop to. And it was only ever going to come a cropper anyway. But yeah, I really enjoyed this movie. I did. I'm surprised myself. I've probably said this about 3 or 4 times now. But I did. I surprised myself how much I found myself invested with it. So there you go. That is that. A few more years. Adam's a pussycat. At the end of the day, he just lives his life. He does what he does. He has his opinions, but at the end of the day, wouldn't unless you came after him, he's no ill will really towards anyone. You know what I mean? Just sort of look he is. Yeah. But like I said, this was a good movie. This was, even for the time, and it still holds up. You can ignore some of the hookiness, and it still holds up enough. Like, manage your expectations. This is not a blockbuster, like, massive production. This is straight to DVD sort of production, so you just manage your expectations with it. But all in all, there's so much worse out there. I'm wondering now, because obviously Sunday night I'm doing Wicked Prayer. That's a 4th movie. Is this going to be like the Exorcist series? So if you remember The Exorcist, epic movie, shit sequel, good 3rd act, god awful 4th one. So spare thought for me that I could be all buzzing now going, it's back on track again, and then get absolutely panned with the 4th movie. I'm hoping not. I'm hoping that the second one was just the cash grab, but they realized there was some value in this story and better people got their heads together, and I hope we get a good 4th one. And then these have turned out to be hidden gems that people have forgotten about and maybe reintroduce them in the world. But there you go. That's that. Let me know what you think anyway. Did you absolutely hate this movie? Did you not? Am I just talking nonsense, do you think? Let me know in the comments. And until next time, keep up to date with the channel, do the typical things, and remember to keep it creepy, keep it horrific.